JPMorgan and Citi are in a fierce race to launch their own stablecoins. Will these bank-backed digital dollars outshine fintech disruptors? Imagine a new payments arms race heating up right before our eyes. By 2030, the stakes are high. A $3.7 trillion market is on the line. Watch the full video to discover which bank could come out on top.
Let's turn to the Genius Act. And for those that don't know, it's the guide, and I had to Google this because I don't know what the acronym is, but Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act. I know that you've been on the Bitcoin wagon for a long time, and you've been very right in terms of direction and whatnot. But is this something that makes sense when you think about regulating stablecoin, trying to take that cryptocurrency, but it's still pegged? This is my problem. It's still pegged to the dollar and treasuries. So are you just now giving another avenue that you can just sell treasuries to because they have to buy it in order to create this stability through this act? Or am I completely off base? This is a great idea, and this is where we need to focus.
I think it's both. Let's talk about it. So as Mark talked about, the Genius Act is it's about to happen. It's passed the House, and it's going to pass, and I believe the president is going to sign it. He's been a huge supporter of crypto and Bitcoin in his second administration. Mm-hmm. And so what we just saw last week is JPMorgan and Citibank are actually saying we're going to issue stable coins. Let's talk about what this is and how to think about it and unravel some of it. We'll dive in on this. So first of all, what a stable coin is, it's a coin that exists basically on the blockchain backed by dollars. And so, you could have $1 in your bank account, or you could have a stable coin that's worth $1. But here's the key point, and this is something that's really important with the legislation. Banks are fractional reserve lending institutions. Okay, that is just a fancy finance way of saying that for every dollar of deposits that a bank takes in, they may be making $5 or $7 or $8 or $10 of loans, right? So they have loans that are greatly in excess of their deposits. And what that means is that if everybody who deposited money in their banks went to the bank at the same time and said, we'd like our money back, please give us, it's a demand deposit. I demand that you return the money, right? That's actually what the term means. If you've ever seen a demand account, the bank would be unable to pay you. And they'd have to start selling assets at fire sale prices. And if we just go back a couple of years, that was what happened with First Republic and Silicon Valley and one or two other banks. So that's the issue with fractional reserve lending. Now, stable coins are going to be, by law, they have to be 100% backed by treasuries or cash of 90 days in duration or shorter. And so what that means is if everybody who had a stable coin went to the stable coin issuer and said, give me dollars in exchange for the stable coins, they would be able to pay everybody about 100%. So they are fully reserved and fully backed. In many ways, a stable coin can be considered an electronic version of cash that is more secure than a bank account. Now, JPMorgan and Citi are smart to get involved here. Mark was making the point correctly that, wait a minute, if we're going to have billions or even trillions of dollars of stable coins and they have to be 100% reserved, doesn't that mean there's going to be huge demand for treasuries? And I believe that's the case, right? By passing this act, guess what? It's given Treasury Secretary Bessent an enormous tailwind because there's going to be, we've talked about this before, he has to issue, what is it, $7 trillion of treasuries this year? It's some insane number like that. Well, guess what? This passing will create massive demand. Now, it's not going to create demand for 10-year treasuries or 20 years or even 5 years. It's going to be 90 days or less, but it still is going to help him issue more of these treasuries. Now, the thing that I really want to point out is while this can be very good for the US Treasury and help out our Treasury Secretary, the stable coins are going to be a huge blessing for the American people and a huge threat to the banks. And the reason is this. It's because banks make their money, much of their money, by extracting fees from customers and from earning interest by delaying routine transactions like wire transfers. If any of you ever, you've paid for a wire transfer, you pay the bank $25 or $50, well, that's profit for them. And then they say, yeah, we didn't get to it today, but don't worry, your money will be in the other account by 4 o'clock tomorrow. And you're thinking, wait, I just paid you $25 to transfer this electronically. Why does it take you more than 30 seconds? And the answer is, well, we don't know, just because, and they're earning interest on that. Well, the deal with stablecoins, and this is why they're such a threat to the banks, is stablecoins will enable you to make instant fee-free transfers. So think about this right now. Let's say, Mark, I wanted to invest in your fund C6, right? And for people who are interested, you should check him out at C6. But if I want to invest, Mark, what do I have to do? I have to go to the bank and I have to initiate a wire, and I got to pay fees, and it's going to take a little while. And by the way, because it's going to be a large investment, they may delay it by a couple of days and earn interest on it, and then say, wait, what do you need the money for? And my answer is, it's none of your business. I want to invest with Mark. And well, what's Mark doing? Again, it's none of your business. Great investments. So there's all of this nonsense, and the banks delay, and they make money off of this. With stable coins, again, instant no fee transfers of funds. I could just send Mark that money and he'd receive it in stable coins. They're 100% back. So remember something, as consumers get more comfortable using this new technology, this is going to be a threatening new competitor to traditional banks. And your fractional reserve lending bank can't say they're 100% reserved. By the way, for what it's worth, DKI has a position in the portfolio to take advantage of this trend. If you're interested in that, you're welcome to go to Deep Knowledge Investing, click subscribe now. That is something that's only for premium paid subscribers, but we are positioned to make money from this trend, and I think it's something that's going to be worth following. Mark, do you have any experience in the stablecoin area?
So one of the things that was interesting, and I brought it up at the very beginning, was Bessett's ability to sell near-term treasuries and the near-term shift. And I do think that this opens up some opportunity. To your point, and I think it's started to get more press over the last 5 years, and they disguise it under know your client. And realistically, it's a means of delay. It's, well, why do you need this $5,000? I'm the treasurer for our local Williston Park Little League, and I had to take money out when we were having a fundraiser just because we needed cash for to make donations, to make cash for raffles and the like. And I thought they were going to ask for hair samples and blood. And it's like, guys, like this is a nonprofit. Like, I don't know what you think I'm going to do with this money. I need it to. And then when I had to bring it back, and you'll be shocked to know it went very well. We had a few additional $2,000 in actual cash. You would have thought that I essentially was a crack dealer, and I just sold a kilo of coke, and this is why I have this money. And I think that the disgust is real, and people are open to alternatives. Now, there are money market accounts. There's technically your checking account, which technically should be available. But when your checking account, which should be available at time, is not, savings is one thing. Savings, they have a right to. It's in the contract. They can move it around. Money markets is supposed to be overnight. And checking account is supposed to be, to your point, demand. I want this right now because it's in my account. And when they start waffling between the two, which is, again, the Glass-Steagall Act, it should have never gone away. It should have been the first thing that came back into existence post '08. And the Glass-Steagall Act separated banking and investment banking. They're very different because, in my opinion, and I believe Gary and I we've spoken about this, an investment banker should never have access to grandma savings, ever. That whoever thought that was a great idea should obviously be fired. And luckily, they are either dead or fired at this point in time. But there's no willingness to bring them, to separate them again, because it would create such an upheaval, because there's so much collateral that has been spoken for and backed up. And now we're trying to figure out, well, how do we establish some sort of security? And that's where I think the stablecoin side comes through. I do think it's a bit of a manipulation to open up a new market for short-term treasuries or short-term paper just to give it a home. but it's coming out of a need because people are frustrated with the way the banking system operates.
Yeah, and with good reason on that. And where Mark is talking about not allowing investment bankers or effectively hedge funds to have access to grandma's savings, right? This is a key point that he's making because when people have talked about, socializing losses, what always happens with the banks is they make money by taking risk. And that's great. So good for them, good for their shareholders. But then when they lose money by taking risk, they get bailed out because they're systematically important. And I proposed a solution to this, I think, in our episode of the 5 Things just 2 weeks ago, where I said what should happen at this point is the government should go to these big, too big to fail, systematically important banks and tell them, we want to be clear right now that there will not be another bailout. You're welcome to take whatever risk you want, but when it happens, we want you to know that your shareholders are going to be zeroed out. They're going to get their stock is going to be worth zero. You're going to be fired. You're going to lose your job. Your bank is going to be closed, and all of your stock options are going to be worth zero. So you think long and hard about how much risk you want to take. Do what you want, but we're not going to bail you out again. Now, that's a fever dream. It will never happen, but that's my proposed solution to this particular problem, right? Let them take whatever risk they want, but make it clear that the taxpayers, that ordinary American citizens are not going to bail them out. And then, by the way, Mark, grandma will be in a position where she can say, do I want stablecoins that are 100% backed? Do I want to go to my local savings and loan, which isn't acting like a hedge fund or a local community bank? Or do I want to bank with one of the big banks, which, may be a hedge fund on steroids with more leverage than even their bond department knows about?
And I think that's so important when you look at the different options, because, one of the things that I love is when they did the stress tests, nobody ever questioned, could rates go up? And it's like, were you really that? Did you really believe that the market had no restitution against you, that there wasn't going to be a push? And that created the first thing, because my running joke is, if you want to flesh out corruption and evil doings, raise rates. And rates will, and that really kind of paves a way. But again, to your point on all of these individuals, they will get left in the lurch because of the bad actors of things that they don't even appreciate or know. And that becomes a huge problem.